The rooftop arrangement. The city lights stretched endlessly below the glass-walled rooftop restaurant, twinkling like fallen stars against the darkness. Sarah Mitchell sat in her wheelchair near the railing, her hands folded nervously in her lap. The evening breeze caught strands of her blonde hair, pulling them loose from where she'd carefully pinned them back. She shouldn't have come. Her co-workers at Henderson and Associates had been pushing this blind date for weeks. "You need to get out more," they'd said. "You're always so focused on work." What they really meant, Sarah knew, was that they pitied her. Poor Sarah in her wheelchair, alone every weekend, buried in legal briefs and case files. The reservation was for 7:30. Sarah glanced at her watch. 7:45. Whoever this mystery man was, he was late. Or maybe he'd taken one look at her from across the restaurant and decided to leave. It wouldn't be the first time. "Excuse me, are you Sarah?" She looked up. A man stood before her, tall and well-dressed in a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly. Dark hair, kind eyes, an apologetic smile. He looked familiar somehow, though she couldn't place from where. "Yes," she managed. "You're my date. I'm David." He gestured to the empty chair across from her small table. "May I?" "Of course." David sat down, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other. Sarah waited for the usual awkwardness, the forced politeness that always came when people saw her wheelchair. But David's expression remained calm, genuinely interested. "I have to apologize," he said. "I'm late because I got caught in a meeting that ran over." "There's no excuse for keeping you waiting." "It's okay," Sarah replied softly. "I was starting to think you weren't coming at all." "Why would you think that?" She hesitated, then decided on honesty. Most people don't expect their blind date to be in a wheelchair. When they find out, they change their minds. David leaned forward slightly. Then most people are missing out on what could be an incredible evening. Sarah felt warmth rise to her cheeks. Behind them, she could hear whispers, see phones being raised. Several of her coworkers were clustered near the bar, watching with barely concealed excitement. She recognized Emma from accounting and Marcus from the legal department. They were filming this. Actually filming her date. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. "Sarah," David's voice pulled her back. "Is something wrong?" No, I just..." She couldn't finish the sentence. A waiter appeared with menus, giving her a moment to collect herself. When he left, David was still watching her with that same gentle attention. "Tell me about yourself," he said. "What do you do?" "I'm a paralegal," Sarah answered, grateful for familiar ground. "Corporate law, mostly. It's detailed work, lots of research and documentation. Not very exciting, I suppose." "I disagree. The details matter. They're what hold everything together." David smiled. "What made you choose law?" "I like finding answers," she said. "Piecing together information until the truth becomes clear. There's something satisfying about bringing order to chaos." They talked easily after that. David asked thoughtful questions and listened carefully to her answers. He told her about his work, something vague about business management, and his love of old movies and morning coffee. The conversation flowed naturally, comfortably, in a way Sarah hadn't experienced in years. But she couldn't shake the awareness of the phones behind her, the watching eyes of her coworkers. This was a setup, a prank, maybe, or worse, some kind of pity project. "Let's find poor Sarah a date," probably sounded charitable in the break room. "You keep looking over your shoulder," David observed quietly. Sarah's hands tightened in her lap. "My coworkers are here. They're watching us, recording us." David's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Ah, you didn't know. I knew this was arranged by people who care about you," he said carefully. "I didn't know they were documenting it. They probably thought it would be funny." Sarah heard the bitterness in her own voice. "Or touching. The girl in the wheelchair finally gets a date. Such a heartwarming story." "Sarah." David reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "May I tell you something?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. 3 years ago, I was in a car accident. Shattered my spine in 2 places. The doctors said I might never walk again." He paused. "I spent 8 months in physical therapy, learning to stand, to take steps, to reclaim what I'd lost. It was the hardest thing I've ever done." Sarah stared at him, genuinely shocked. "I'm not telling you this to compare our situations," David continued. "Everyone's journey is different, but I understand something about how people look at you. The pity, the lowered expectations, the way they try to help in ways that sometimes hurt worse than the original injury. Why did you agree to this date? Sarah asked. If you knew it was a setup. David smiled, and this time it reached his eyes completely. Because the person who contacted me said you were intelligent, kind, and too stubborn to accept help even when you needed it. She said you'd been hurt before and had stopped trusting people's intentions. She thought maybe I could understand that. Who contacted you? Your friend Emma. She actually came to see me at my office. Said she was worried about you isolating yourself. David's voice was gentle. She wasn't trying to embarrass you, Sarah. She was trying to help. Sarah's throat tightened. She thought about Emma bringing her coffee every morning, always asking about her weekend. The invitations to lunch that Sarah usually declined. The careful concern that Sarah had mistaken for pity. I've been pushing people away, she whispered. It's a defense mechanism. I did the same thing. David finally closed the distance, his hand covering hers. But I learned something important. Letting people care about you isn't weakness. It's courage. Sarah looked at their hands, then up at David's face. Behind them, she could hear Emma's soft gasp, could imagine the tears she was probably crying. Not tears of pity, Sarah realized now. Tears of hope. What happens when this date ends? She asked. I was hoping we could plan another one, David replied. A real one, just the two of us. No audience, no setup. Just two people who might enjoy getting to know each other better. I'd like that. David's smile transformed his entire face. How about next Saturday? There's a small Italian place downtown, family-owned, best pasta I've ever had. Very low-key. That sounds perfect. They finished dinner talking about everything and nothing, favorite books, childhood memories, dreams for the future. When David walked her to her car, he didn't try to take over, didn't assume she needed help. He simply stayed beside her, present and unhurried. Thank you, Sarah said before leaving. For understanding, for being honest. Thank you for giving me, a chance, David replied. As Sarah drove home, the city lights blurring past her window, she realized something had shifted inside her. The walls she'd built so carefully were still there, but they had cracks now. Small openings where light could get through. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma. I'm sorry if we overstepped. We just wanted you to be happy. Asterisk. Sarah smiled and typed her response. Dinner next Saturday. You and Marcus. I want you to meet him properly. Asterisk. Sometimes, she thought, the people who care about you see things you can't see yourself. Sometimes being vulnerable enough to accept their help is the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes, just sometimes, a setup becomes something real. The city lights continued their endless dance, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt like she was part of their rhythm rather than watching from the outside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new doubts, new moments to navigate. But tonight, driving through the illuminated streets with the memory of David's smile warming her heart, Sarah allowed herself to hope. And hope, she was learning, was its own kind of courage.